It's over to you. Couldn't wait to put you on. You know, I skip a lot of things, you know, Tanya, because yes, ma'am.
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Kadeen. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Um, Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. There's so much in the numbers, and for Christine, for sharing also. So, similar to Christine, as I am on my journey, I have been sharing my story, my journey, just, in hopes of empowering persons and giving information. And so, Christine started us off with the numbers, similar numbers. I think my numbers that I'm going to share, Mr. Johnson, you probably won't believe them, even though you had that slide. But I want to start off by just saying that one of the things you said, is about life after a diagnosis. And one of the things and the stories that I've been really speaking about is there is life during the diagnosis and during the treatment. And so, I say to persons, let us dare to thrive through it. And that's my story and that's my message. So I, as Kadeen says, I've spent 20 odd years in corporate, in financial, but now I am a certified leadership and personal development coach. And I'm using that avenue to empower and help persons, because the other message that's coming out for me strongly is to live now, not later, live now. And so just to take it back a little bit, my exit, so to speak, out of corporate was really coming to a place of let me just say mental and physical breakdown, stress. And so, you spoke about, Mr. Johnson spoke about lifestyle, especially from, being sedentary and the foods and that sort of a thing. One of the things that I have come to truly recognize and understand is the role that stress plays on the body. And in fact, one of my coaches and mentor, you might have heard of Bob Proctor. He doesn't even use the word disease. He calls it dis-ease. That's dis-ease in the body. And even as I speak into a counselor, everything is energy. And so when we have all that negative energy, whether it's from work or stress or COVID or whatever it is, it has to express itself some way, somehow. And if we're not finding that way to let it out, it's going to sit somewhere. And so my story is that I think mine just sat in my breast. So, having started feeling that breakdown, I started that shift. But then in 2018, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. And so at the end of Oh, you too, Christine. Yeah. And so at the end of, 2018, quit my job, went up overseas with her to be, her caregiver. And so we spent January to July in the United States, because her tumor was and she has given me permission to share her story in a tricky little place. And so we actually found a specialist surgeon in Los Angeles, and that's where we were. So we came back home in July of 2019, and I'm all set to resume life and carry on. When in October of 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But the thing, and before I really share my numbers, I know there are so many persons who are either on the call, who, know someone or has a family member, or even who themselves have been through. And one of the things my mom and I truly discovered, you've heard it, is your healing process really begins in the mind. And so we created what we called, a recipe for thriving. And whether you're having a physical breakdown as an illness or not, or just managing now, as someone said on the call, she's just grateful that she has a job because so many persons have lost their jobs due to COVID. What is that self-care? What is that routine, which feeds into what you were saying, Mr. Johnson, to be taking care of ourselves. And so by the time I was diagnosed, I literally said, well, having gone through with my mom, I think I pretty much have a hand on it. Of course, every situation is different, yeah? So, so, why I share my story in that manner, and even as I was going through, someone called me up after I posted a picture of me doing radiation, and I said, guys, I am being infused with superhero awesomeness, because perception, how we choose to look at things, also make a difference. And so I say it's always about focusing on that breakthrough and not on the breakdown, because where our focus goes, our energy flows, and that's what we create. So whether it's it's illness or not. So in going through, I was diagnosed with and I had to write it down so I could always remember. It's the HER2 positive, ER positive strain of breast cancer. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I would always hear breast cancer and think, okay, breast cancer. Now I learned that there are strains. And what I came to understand, that the HER2 positive, ER positive is very prevalent in Jamaica. I think Christine just put in the chat that that's what she was diagnosed with. So I started to do a little bit of research, and it was showing that Black women tend to be HER2 positive, and for whatever reason, we don't know what that is. So with my diagnosis, the doctor said to me, we can have three types: one that's very, very aggressive, one that's not as aggressive, one very aggressive, the HER2, what I had, but there is treatment for, one that's not as aggressive, one that's extremely aggressive, and we haven't figured out a treatment for that yet. So that was good news for me to begin with. Christine has spoken about her personal numbers, but one of the things I want to say is, like so many persons, yes, I did decades in corporate, in investments, in banking. And so I would have been up close firsthand. I would have even been training investment advisors, insurance advisors. But too many times we also don't pay enough attention to our own finances. So we're busy looking after everybody else's, and we forget about ours. So yes, I will also admit that as I was going, as I was going through life, a couple of my insurance policies lapsed, And what I have discovered, and even as I was speaking to persons, is that as we're going and we're feeling good and we're feeling healthy, we figure nothing is going to happen. Yeah. But we don't want to be caught off guard. We don't want it to happen, but we don't want to be caught off guard. So the thing I'd throw in the mix is, you get off this call, and one of the things I know is very difficult when we have to stop and take that snapshot of where we are financially. For some of us who are either approaching retirement, or we are, or we've worked so hard, we find it a little difficult to just stop and acknowledge exactly where we are at and what it is that we need to do, because we may be feeling a little bit embarrassed, or saying, boy, I should be so much further along. So that's one thing. To stop and get a hold of your financial situation, meaning your entire portfolio, your investment, your insurance, your savings. Because remember now, I spent practically a whole year being my mom's caregiver. So that would have meant no income coming in. And then last year, as I was going through my treatments, right? And with the advent of COVID, that also meant after a while, I had to stop working, but I had my treatments to go to and my drugs to purchase. So my two things now: one, live now, dare to thrive. Two, get a hold of your financial portfolio. And so, just in supporting Christine and Kadeen and Mr. Johnson around critical illness, for me, when I got my diagnosis, what it was, I was also now told we have two drugs that will give you the absolute best shot at getting rid of this thing. I want you to listen carefully. One is called Herceptin, and the other one is called Perjeta. These are two drugs. These are not chemo. The Herceptin, 18 doses, that's $5 million. That's the Herceptin. That's just one drug.
That's the right spelling?
Yes.
Yes.
And please don't ask me how. Yes. The second one is called Perjeta. Now, the Perjeta, after a 20% discount from face commodity, was approximately $652,000 per dose. Like Christine, we were going every 3 weeks. So that's the Herceptin, the Perjeta. What I call the regular chemo costs would range anywhere between $75,000 to $150,000, depending on where you were getting the drugs from. Every 3 weeks. So immediately, I remember the day when my husband said to me, he's managing the spreadsheets, and he said to me, with everything, he said, "Tanya, we're over the $10 million mark." Where did a lot of that come from to support me? My critical illnesses. And I must say that, they were paid out like so easily. The critical illnesses that almost lapsed on me because everything was going fine. And what we tend to do is, when things become hard, we look to cut. Where can I cut my expenses? And because you're not using it at this point, then it becomes that easy place to cut. The other place was obviously my health insurance, because then we're also looking at, and Mr. Johnson, you need to update that slide. Radiation is like 2.5 million now. So, and we're not talking about your x-rays, your CT scans, physio after. For me, lymph node removals were involved in my surgery. And so to prevent lymphedema, I now go weekly to get that lymphedema drainage. That's like $7,000 every session. And there's just so much more that comes after that. So it was an easy 20 million in costs. As I looked around, so the other thing that supported me also was that for the Herceptin, the government of Jamaica, if you qualify, actually subsidizes that cost for you, meaning you can get into the clinic, and you get it subsidized. Not everybody gets that. And in fact, I remember that, we know someone who works at the Cancer Society, and he was sharing that the request letters to help with Herceptin was just, pile high on the desk. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, as I was going into the clinic, at UWE on a Friday, there would be Fridays when there are hundreds of us in that clinic. And I remember one day I looked around at my doctor and I said, I'm getting the distinct feeling that it's not the illness itself that's killing a lot of persons, is the inability to afford the treatment, the care. That is what the big thing, and that struck home to me, because I will put my hand up and say that I was so well supported, family, friends. I was able to lean on my own savings. I was able to really lean on my insurance, critical illnesses, the National Health Fund, my health insurance. And so even if you are, so here's, and the other thing that I've also recognized is that persons who are entrepreneurs, who have their own businesses, who are responsible for their own healthcare, tend not to take out health insurance. And that's something I want to encourage you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're your own business owner, if you are someone who works part-time for someone and your health insurance is your own responsibility, please get on top of that and get that going. I remember one day when I was doing chemo, I was actually having a conversation with a nurse. This was such a surprising conversation for me. And she was saying, she deals with persons in oncology. And so she has seen the ravages of this thing, but she has also seen how the health insurance is, how the policies, the payouts actually help people to afford. And she said to me, but I don't have any health insurance. I don't have any critical illnesses. And that was quite shocking to me. And I was asking her why. And she said, well, I work for someone and I think that they should provide me. No. You have to take your own health, your own matters into your hands, right? And so, my simple story now is really twofold. Just stop. We have one life, and it's an amazing life that we have. But we want to be living life from a place that expands us, that feels good to us, that's allowing us to express our natural talents and gifts, because that can also help to reduce the stresses that we're feeling. Right now, I'm not telling anybody to walk away from, but we also have to take care of ourselves. My mom and I came up with this daily thing. We would start off every day with prayer and devotion. Then we'd get into meditation. Then we get into every day reading or listening to something positive. And so one of the books I highly recommend now when I speak is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, because everything starts here, every result that we have, right? I remember there are days when if I started to feel a little ill, I'd say, okay, Tanya, what are you thinking that's causing your body to react this way? And chances are I'd be thinking something a little negative, because, I'm human. And the moment I started to switch my thought process, I would literally feel my body feeling better and better and better. But what that also does is that it gives you the energy, the will to do whatever it is that you need to do to take care of you, including taking care of your finances. And so even as you say, but things are so tough now, I get it. But it's like, what is it that they say, that insurance is like a guarantee for success? You don't want to have to pull on the guarantee. But if you have to pull on the guarantee, it is there. And so, in closing, it's really a threefold message that I have, really. And I've said to Katie, use my numbers to really help people to understand what it is on an individual basis. Because, you know, as Mr. Johnson, he's showing us the high level. And sometimes the high level for us look like 20 billion. Oh, I can't even relate to that. You know, Christine had a different scenario than mine. So her numbers are different. You know, my numbers also include, I never forget when the doctor said, Tanya, I don't know that there are 6 persons in Jamaica on Perjeta. And I said, well, I get that. How many people can afford? There's another young lady I was talking to. She did 1 round of Perjeta and that was it. You know, so the first thing is, ladies and gentlemen, recognize that it's one life we have. And so we got to live now and live powerfully and live in our power, whatever that needs to look like for you. While you do that, it's also about taking care of your finances. Don't be afraid. I remember the first time I did a personal financial snapshot where I was looking at my net worth, my assets and my liabilities. I think I cried for about a week because I was like, whoa, I am next to broke. What is going on here? But what it did was that it spurred me into action, into taking care of what I needed to take care of. So as you do that, you know, do not allow your policies to lapse. If you do not have your critical illness, if you do not have your health insurance, talk to Kadeen, get stuff in place, because it does get hard, not only for you, the patient, but for you, the caregiver and the support person, right? And the third thing I really want to leave with is also about, you know, as you journey, and Christine, you know, I so applaud you. Don't be afraid to share. We know that one of the things I didn't realize, that there is still so much stigma attached, especially to cancer. I remember someone was crying and saying when she was diagnosed, the first thing somebody asked her was, well, you must be a wicked person. And I was like, what does that even mean? You know, but what I have also come to recognize is that the more I share is the more I am helping someone else on their journey, right? So at the end of it, I just wrap it up in one big thing: dare to thrive and not just survive. And you know, the Mr. Johnsons of the world and the Kadeens of this world are here to help us to thrive and not just survive. And I'm going to leave it right there. But I'm here for any questions that you may have. I think Kadeen is lost.
Wow, yes, I
There she is.
Disconnected from the laptop. I'm not sure what's happening there, but I'm on the phone.
Great, Tanya. Great story. Great.
Yes,
Absolutely
I mean, that's such a
fantastic.
moving presentation, and both of you have enriched this meeting and really made it's an eye-opening presentation. And so I thank you so much. But I know that that many persons have a question to ask. So you can, guys, you can go ahead and ask a question. You know, you're in your house, I'm in my like veranda talk, and we're chilling. And so the questions on your mind, and Christine can answer some as well. And you can say who you want to direct the questions to. We have experts here, right, in the room to help you. All right, go ahead. Oh, somebody says, thank you, Tanya, you're helping me right now. Oh,
awesome. And what I always do, yeah, thank you. And what I also do, you know, there are so many persons when I share my story have contacted me on a one-on-one basis. And I'm very open for sharing and supporting that way.
Yes. Someone mentioned the price to pay because working with pay have. All right, in terms of pay, the shared costs of your
Kadeen, let me explain, try to explain what it is if you don't understand what the question was. What I'm saying is, you have a lot of entrepreneurs who don't do insurance simply because I know my mother, for one. I remember her telling me that, she started the insurance, the self-insurance, health insurance for 1 year, and I think she paid like she had to pay 100 and something thousand up front. And I found it really weird. I wasn't sure if that was true, but the question was, a lot of persons don't do it because of probably the upfront money or the money that they have to take. Because normally, if you're with a company, the company pays half and you pay half, or the company subsidized for whatever it is. So the money that you have to pay upfront so kind of sound like a whole lot sometimes when you have to take insurance out on your own. So that is what I wanted you to elaborate on and probably explain it a little bit more.
Right. What you have is two scenarios. You have the individual coverage and you have a group coverage. Individual health care is very expensive because there's no opportunities for discount. With the group, there is. One second. I'm gonna have to leave one meeting. Leave one.
All right. If I could chip in a little bit here, I believe the credit union has like a group plan that if you're not affiliated with a company, because most persons buy their insurance through a group plan. And I think I'd indicate, yes. Oh, you're back?
Yes, go ahead. But you can go ahead. You can answer that.
Yeah. All right. So I was making the point that that is one option available. A number of the credit unions have the facility to incorporate people and they get a group plan and it's more affordable. But yes, individual insurance is expensive, especially if you're up for the overseas type. It's a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
And what I would add to that, I totally understand that. And one of the things as persons are perhaps transitioning from their companies, to their own businesses, there are opportunities in there also. But I would also want to say, also recognize you may pay 100,000 for a year, and you find that just a simple bone scan is so much more than that, that the insurance will cover 80% of that for you. We don't want to go there absolutely at all. But if we do and we have that kind of coverage, because my bone scan was what $100,000, and I ended up paying out of pocket, I think it was 20,000 or something to that effect. So sometimes it's also looking at it. So for me, insurance has become an investment. Pretty much, yeah. So explore all possible avenues to getting yourself covered.
Okay. Other questions? Keep it coming.
So is there insurance that you can, a health insurance that you can put your family on? Do you provide that kind of service? If you're
that's
not
an individual plan,
and
the group one comes with a company, registered company, where you provide your company TRN and the business registration. So the difference is there's a higher cost with the individual plan, which would put your family on, which is spouse and children. That's what family means, right? So spouse and children. And the group one for the employers, we have several options. The minimum is 5%. So you can talk to your employer if you're privately employed. I know the public sector have the teachers and the nurses, the government health plan. So if you're private and there are 5 employees minimum, yes, you can get the group insurance plan. But the group plan goes to one extent in terms of it will help you to go to the doctor to find out what has been diagnosed, but to treat and to deal with the cost of what you need